Hey guys, welcome back to the Joe Silverback Show. This is part 2 of why the silverback and the meaning of the silverback and the symbolism of the silverback. And as I was talking before about the nuclear family, of course I go back to the drawing board and the questions come from the audience and come into my head. What about people who don't have family or pre-family or youth? So let's take those one at a time. Youth are just modeling adults and fake it until you make it kind of thing, and hopefully the wisdom from the older males to the younger males is something that you go after in your family dynamics and you teach your children to go after in their reaching for becoming the silverback or in the other realm, being a mate to a silverback. And we're going to talk about the feminine role in a little while, so let's just stick with the male for a minute. So modeling, faking it until you make it, pretending, that's basically what childhood is all about, and adolescence. And then what about those people who don't end up having families or don't want to have families? And if you go back to anything I've ever said, we're always talking statistically, and we're always talking proportionality and propensities. And the propensity is for 85% of the population end up having family, some number like that. So that's my answer there. And then for those who are not going to be having family, who end up being bachelors, let's say, and again, this is heterosexual only. I don't deal with anything outside of that realm. That's just not my knowledge base. So I'll leave that to someone who's non-heterosexual, who focuses on non-heterosexual relationship and behavior, because that's not my realm at all, and I don't even want to pretend I know how to answer those questions. So the solo, we do, if we do look at our primate evolutionary history, we do have the orangutan, who is the solo primate, meaning that he just gets together with the female to copulate, and then he leaves and goes and lives his solo life. And I do think it is funny, and I do think it is worth the time and attention to look at that, because there are intellectual types, and there are loner types, and there are certain solo travelers who are not meant to have family, and it's a good thing that they don't have family, because they're just not designed that way. My father might have been best not having family, because he was an only child, and he was such a he's such a hermit, he's such a solo traveler, that might have been in his DNA, and he tried to go against it. So in terms of being solo, the principles are still the same. You have this DNA, warrior leadership drive toward being at the top. Now, everything is relative, and hierarchies are relative. So there are, as is so mistakenly misunderstood in feminist ideology, there is something that's really lacking when we say that we should have men and women all at equal levels. Meaning, hey, if we've got 10,000 male CEOs, we need to have 5,000 of them. If we have 10,000 CEOs, 5,000 of them have to be females. Well, that's the dumbest mathematics I've ever heard of. Just like if we have 10,000 CEOs, we've got to have low achievers, middle achievers, and high achievers on those CEOs. Well, that's just not it. The super mega alpha males who who can't sit still for the world, and they're just driven to be at that level, are there for a reason. They are the magas and the megas and the highest level achievers, and there's only a percentage of them. So let's say that out of 100% of males, 15% can get to that highest level at the top, CEO, boss, whatever level. That means that 85% are going to be lower than that. So let's say that, 30% can be at the next tier level. That's 45%, and maybe you've got another, 30% of low achievers, and then you've got maybe 15% of the population that you call zero achievers, or just zero achievers. So now you bring in the question of women in these achievement positions, and you're going to have maybe 15% of the female population that's going to get to the highest level of achievement, drive, ambition, desire, work ethic for females. Okay? And that 15% now is competing for this 15% over here. But that 15% level might be here compared to these male level, right? It's just nature, my friends. It's just nature. There's nothing about equality there. Just like there's nothing about the guys at the low level of achievement in relationship to the males at the highest level of achievement. You're gonna have the highest achievers be the highest status of leadership in social hierarchies. Okay, so that's school, work, sports, social organizations. You're going to have these mega people at the top. You're going to have a bunch of people below them, and a bunch of people below them, and then a smaller percentage at the very, very, very bottom. So if that's where sociobiology and E.O. Wilson's work comes in, because to look at these ant colonies, you've only got one queen. Then you've got a bunch who could be queens, and they will be queens if that queen dies. And then you've got these worker ants, and they're just massively, production oriented. And among those, you've got certain stratas of managers, and you've got below that certain stratas of slaves, slave labor. That's the best way I can describe it. And in our male world, let's just talk about the male world right now. We've got strata also, and it's based on biological and sociological relationships. And that's biological means that in your nature, in your character, in your personality, you like to just coast and be right here. You like to go into your job, be told what to do, be given a certain task, do that the best you can, and leave and not take any responsibility with you. Or you like to boss people around, and you like to manage people, and you're willing to take on extra stressful things, and including taking lots of phone calls at home and organizing and planning for the next day. And then you've got these guys way up here that are willing to carry huge amounts of stress. So when people look at these these Donald Trump type personalities, I'm not envious of them at all, because it's just not me. I'm not at all willing to be attacked and berated by everybody who's underneath me just so that I can be at the top. I mean, people who go up to these high levels have to put up with everybody else shooting their bows and arrows at them, and there is nowhere else to go, right, except for God, right? So this is hierarchy, and all within, say, now if you take the Silverback principle, not everybody's going to be the Silverback of the tribe. There's going to be less backs. There's going to be younger Silverbacks. There's going to be medium Silverbacks. There's going to be, it's just the way it is. And biology creates that. And you can't, anyone who has had children knows that, children are born with a certain personality. And then there's cultural differences and educational differences, and in 30 years of being an entrepreneur and a business owner and creating opportunity for others, I have found that it's best to let somebody show us where they like to fit in the hierarchy, because I have tried so many times to get really talented craftsmen and really talented handymen to get their contractor's license. I will pay for them to get their contractor's license. I will tutor them. I will help them with the testing. And these guys know, they have such a knowledge base of the technical stuff, but guess what? They don't want the responsibility. They don't want the stress. They don't want to be in that level of leadership where the responsibility falls on them, where the liability falls on them. So they'll say, hey, Joe, you be the contractor, you take the liability, we'll be under you, and any mistakes that are made, you'll bear the brunt of it, and we'll be the workers. You can't take a pineapple and turn it into a pear. You just can't. So now let's take this principle, and someone was asking me, well, you study Taoism, you talk about wisdom traditions. I am a huge proponent of Taoism, and I'm talking about ancient Taoism, not modern Taoism, not wishy-washy Taoism. I'm talking about looking at the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching, and even Confucianism, to look at the shaping of how ancient China shaped society, both with their legal structural system, which came from Confucianism, then their mystical, metaphysical, self-actualizing, Taoist philosophy, where they're looking at nature and looking at the cycles of nature and the yin and yang, and it is really important to be a self-actualized person and understand that there is yin and yang going on inside of your consciousness all the time, and inside of decision making all the time. Sometimes you got to go high, sometimes you got to go low, sometimes you got to go for the middle road. Sometimes you got to be softer, sometimes you got to be firmer. Sometimes you got to be yielding, sometimes you got to plow straight ahead, and that's a meditative consciousness experience that doesn't change biology and gender and sex and male primate silverback nature. When you're the leader, you have huge responsibility. Being the leader doesn't mean that you are better than those who you are leading, because if it did, it doesn't. There's just a place for everything and a thing for every place, and with leadership comes huge responsibility, and part of that responsibility is wisdom. And wisdom is not only plowing straight ahead. There's I want to say Cree, an old Cree saying that says the porcupine walks backwards while looking forward. And it's a cautionary tale about progress versus process. We live in a world where we are slaves to progress. We are slaves to economic progress. We are slaves to monetary progress. We are slaves to bigger and more means better. That's not wisdom at all. Progress is not any more valuable than stopping and even retreating. So there's a time to retreat, there's a time to move forward, there's a time to yield, and there's a time to push straight ahead. That's the yin and yang and the flow of the Tao and the way in which a good leader will be attuned to. And that good leader, though, has to be able to be as fierce and ferocious and fearless about moving forward when it's the right time, as he is to be wise to retreat when danger's present and it's too much danger and he needs to protect the tribe. Namaste.